So there's this really silent, kind of agonizing paradox that governs, well, the overwhelming majority of human effort today.
Oh, absolutely. You see it everywhere.
Right. Like we see individuals who are just burning through these immense reserves of ambition. I mean, they're exerting Herculean effort, perfectly executing every strategic move that conventional wisdom dictates.
And yet they go nowhere.
Exactly. They find themselves perfectly, immovably trapped in the exact same socioeconomic or emotional loops as their predecessors.
Yeah, the exact same loop.
So imagine inheriting not a physical estate, right? No vintage watches, no acreage of land, no silver-framed photographs from the distant past.
Right.
Instead, picture just being handed this invisible, endless tide of continuous struggle.
Man, it is the heaviest heirloom conceivable.
Yeah, it really is.
And yet it functions as the baseline, the divisible reality for a vast constellation of humanity.
Wow, yeah. A vast constellation.
Because they receive this inheritance, not with, like, a formal reading of a will, right? It's not handed to them on paper.
No, of course not.
It's absorbed. It's through the silent absorption of atmospheric pressure within their childhood home.
Precisely. And you witness it crystallize in these vast networks of, fractured relationships that just seem to repeat with terrifying precision, generation after generation.
Like clockwork.
Yeah, or you feel it in the seemingly inescapable heavy gravity of financial scarcity. You find yourself, sitting at a table, splitting the proverbial meager meal, normalizing a life of profound lack.
Yes.
And the true tragedy isn't even the meager meal itself, right? It's that eventually you accept an identity of absolute limitation.
You really do.
It ceases to be something happening to you, and it becomes the very definition of who you are.
You wear it like a second skin. I mean, it becomes the water you swim in.
Yeah.
To the point where the very concept of being dry is just unfathomable to you.
Yeah.
The individual accepts the parameters of their suffering as, like, the absolute laws of physics.
So let's rigorously unpack this internal frustration today, because I guarantee anyone listening to us right now has collided with this invisible wall.
Without a doubt.
You have the ambition, you do the grueling work, you actively attempt to, sever the ties to your family's historical dysfunction.
You try to cut the cord.
Exactly. Yet, despite paddling furiously against the current, an invisible undertow relentlessly pulls you back to a predetermined fate.
It's exhausting.
It is maddening. It forces us to ask, why does immense conscious effort so often yield the exact same results as the ancestor who simply surrendered?
Well, it's because conscious effort without subconscious alignment is merely friction.
Friction. That's a great way to put it.
It is the ultimate human dilemma.
Right.
But, recognizing it is the threshold of ultimate human liberation.
Right.
So we are embarking on this really expansive inquiry today into the very mechanics behind reality creation.
Yes, and I'm so excited for this.
Our mission is to dissect exactly how to alter the energetic trajectory of an entire lineage. We are deconstructing the precise architecture required to transform that inherited crushing burden into an eternal gift for everyone who follows.
Okay, I'm fascinated by the premise, but I have to push back a little on the framing here.
Okay, go ahead.
When you say altering the energetic trajectory, I mean, it carries a beautiful, almost poetic resonance, right?
Sure.
But it risks sounding entirely abstract to someone who is currently, drowning in that reality.
I see that, yeah.
To me, this feeling of generational repetition feels less like an energetic trajectory and much more mechanical.
I'll unpack that.
Well, it feels like I am an actor born onto a stage, right? And I'm handed a script written during the passage of previous eras.
Vivid.
And I detest the lines. I loathe the tragic character I'm supposed to play. But the director, whether we call that society or genetics or family obligation, just keeps pointing aggressively at the script.
They demand you read the lines.
Exactly. I feel completely bound by the role. So how do we escape a script that feels encoded into our very nervous system?
I love that. That analogy of the actor and the script, it perfectly captures the phenomenology of the trap. You feel forced.
Completely forced.
The script feels rigid, permanent, and mandated by an unquestionable authority.
Right.
But what we are going to reveal through this discussion is that the boundaries of your role are entirely self-sustained.
Wait, self-sustained?
Yes. You are not merely the actor. You are the playwright, the director, the theater, and the stage itself.
Oh, wow.
There is a precise, observable, and highly mechanical method to rewrite this play entirely.
Okay.
But to accomplish that, we must first, tear up the floorboards and examine the fundamental fabric the stage is actually built upon.
Well, I am ready to pull up the floorboards. Where do we locate the foundation of this trap?
We begin with a direct, objective assertion that fundamentally shatters the central illusion under which the overwhelming majority of humanity operates.
Lay it on me.
There is absolutely no separation between your internal mind and your external environment.
None.
None.
When?
Zero. They are fused together by an unbroken, invisible thread. Your mind and your reality are a continuous loop of causality.
Okay, but if we are positing that there is zero separation, we run into a major experiential wall immediately.
How so?
Well, sitting here in this room, my sensory apparatus tells me something entirely different,
No,
right?
your senses.
Yeah. There is a distinct boundary of my skin. There's me generating internal thought, and then there is the physical room around me, which seems, honestly, entirely indifferent to my internal state.
Yes, the room seems separate.
Exactly. If I feel wealthy or if I feel impoverished, the chair I'm sitting on remains functionally identical.
Well, your sensory apparatus is designed for biological survival, not for perceiving quantum or energetic mechanics.
Okay, that's fair.
The overwhelming majority of humanity will walk the earth trusting only their sensory inputs, and thus they will never perceive this fundamental unity.
They just trust what they can touch.
Exactly. Because they cannot perceive the invisible thread connecting their neurochemical states to their environmental circumstances, they live a life entirely by default.
Wow. By default.
We must establish this basic rule.
Yeah.
Reality is not a sequence of events that happens to you. Reality is merely consciousness in solid form.
Consciousness in solid form. Let me try to ground that for the listener, because we have to explain the mechanism of that crystallization.
Go for it.
Let's move beyond the basic idea of steam freezing into ice, right? Yeah. While accurate, I think we can look at this through the lens of cymatics.
Oh, cymatics. Brilliant.
Right. If you take a flat metal plate, cover it in a chaotic scattering of sand, and run a specific sound frequency through the plate, the sand doesn't just vibrate randomly.
No, it organizes.
Instantly. It instantly organizes. It forms incredibly precise geometric patterns based entirely on the pitch of the frequency.
Exactly.
So your dominant beliefs and your emotional baseline is the sound frequency. And the physical environment, the bank account, the quality of relationships, the physiological stress markers that is the sand.
That is a staggering improvement on the steam analogy, honestly, because it highlights the immediacy and the inexorable nature of the physical response.
Sand has to move.
The sand has absolutely no choice but to conform to the frequency. Your deeply held assumptions, your silent expectations, your chronic emotional baseline, those were the invisible frequencies resonating through the plate of your life.
Wow.
The external circumstances are merely the sand organizing perfectly to match your internal pitch. They are the same substance expressing itself in two different states of density.
So applying this to the visceral reality of our daily lives, if I am experiencing absolute chaos in my external world,
Right.
like if the business deals constantly fall through, if the romantic relationships repeatedly shatter in the exact same pattern, if financial ruin seems to chase me no matter how hard I work, what is that actually telling me?
Well, what do you usually think it's telling you?
Because the default human reaction is to view the chaotic sand and scream, why is the wind blowing my sand around?
Exactly. We view external chaos and instantly adopt the posture of a victim. We search for an external culprit.
The economy, our upbringing, our partners.
Exactly. But if you ever find yourself profoundly confused by the chaotic, painful state of your external world, that confusion is a direct, flashing indicator of a profound unawareness of your own internal frequency.
A flashing indicator.
The external chaos is a perfect, flawless mirror of an internal dissonance you have simply refused to look at.
So the chaos isn't a random attack at all.
Not at all.
It's an exact diagnostic readout of a mess I am actively generating but actively ignoring.
Precisely. The individual who has undertaken the rigorous work of mastering their mind is never surprised by their physical circumstances.
Never.
Never. Because they recognize that the sand they are looking at today is just the frequency they were broadcasting yesterday.
That is wild.
If you are shocked by the condition of your life, it simply means you have completely abandoned the control room of your own consciousness.
That presents a staggering level of personal responsibility. I mean, it destroys the comfort of victimhood entirely.
It obliterates it.
But conversely, it provides an immense, almost terrifying degree of agency, doesn't it?
That's the beauty of it.
Because if our current chaotic reality is merely sand organized by an inherited frequency, How do we begin to change the pitch? Like, how do we melt down the generational struggle?
Well, to change the course of existence for an entire bloodline, you have to execute an act of immense psychological courage.
Okay, what is that act?
You must look backward. You must ruthlessly yet dispassionately observe the realities of those who came before you.
You mean turning our attention directly toward the lives of our parents, our grandparents, and the endless lineage behind them?
Yes, because of a fundamental mechanic of reality, which is that the mind cannot hold secrets.
What do you mean?
The human mind does not possess a vault where it can successfully hide its true nature. It is a pure, unrelenting projector. It endlessly projects its purest, most dominant essence outward into the physical environment.
So when I look back at the endless tides of struggle my grandparents endured, I shouldn't just view it through like a sociological lens of bad luck or systemic misfortune.
No, absolutely not.
You are saying I am literally looking at their subconscious minds outpictured in physical space.
You are directly observing their unique energetic signature. It is the internal product code of your family lineage.
The product code. Wow.
If you want to know what exact frequency your ancestors were emitting, you do not need to guess. You simply observe the circumstances they were perpetually surrounded by.
That makes it so clear.
Their external reality is the cosmic mirror reflecting their internal architecture.
Okay, I understand the logic, but this is where the theory collides violently with human emotion.
Let's hear it.
I really have to challenge the idea of doing this dispassionately.
Why is that?
Because when you observe an inherited pattern that has actively dismantled your sense of safety, right?
Sure.
Say a generational cycle of profound poverty that meant you went hungry as a child, or a legacy of severe emotional volatility that just destroyed your peace.
Right.
Asking for emotional neutrality feels practically impossible. I mean, the anger you feel looking back at that isn't just a philosophical disagreement, it's a physiological survival response.
It is deeply biological.
Yeah. So how do you look at the source of your deepest wounds and not scream, why did you hand this invisible curse to me?
Your challenge is entirely valid. The anger is a deeply embedded biological survival mechanism. It is profoundly human.
Right.
However, we must separate the validation of an emotion from the perpetuation of a frequency.
Okay, explain that distinction.
Here is the mechanical, objective truth about reality. Anger merely feeds the old frequency.
I see.
When you react with fiery resentment toward the inheritance, your autonomic nervous system floods your body with stress chemistry. It locks your brain into a highly reactive state.
Yeah, you get totally activated.
And in doing so, you generate massive amounts of emotional energy that resonate on the exact same bandwidth as the original struggle. You are aggressively watering the poisonous plant you are trying to uproot.
Oh, man. So by raging against the generational trap, I am actually vibrating at the exact frequency of the trap,
Yes.
thereby ensuring the sand of my reality stays locked in that exact same pattern.
Perfectly stated. The friction of your anger sustains the pattern.
That is a bitter pill to swallow.
It is, but therefore you must adopt the emotional neutrality of a clinical diagnostician reading a medical scan.
A diagnostician.
Think about it. A diagnostician doesn't look at an image of a shattered bone and curse the bone, right?
Right. They don't get mad at the x-ray.
Exactly. They do not judge the fracture. They observe it purely to understand the structural nature of the break so they can apply the precise cure. Emotional neutrality is the singular vantage point from which you can clearly map out the neural and behavioral routes that lead nowhere. You analyze the map of your lineage to locate the traps, not to condemn the blind travelers who fell into them.
That reframing shifts everything. I am no longer the victim of my ancestors. I am the diagnostician of their frequency. I am reading the map.
And as you read that map, you must comprehend the ultimate feedback loop governing our environment.
What's the loop?
When the universe receives an energetic signature, let us say a signature of profound scarcity or the silent terror of impending ruin, it does not possess a moral compass.
Right, it doesn't judge.
It does not look at your lineage and say, oh, this family has suffered enough, let's artificially grant them a reprieve.
It's not a charity.
The universe operates on exact, unwavering mechanical laws. It receives the signature, it verifies the code, it validates the vibration, and it materializes that exact condition back to the sender.
So the universe functions as a perfectly neutral validation engine.
Completely neutral.
Whatever frequency I hand it, it dutifully hands back to me in physical form, perfectly matched, without a shred of judgment.
It is a flawless reflection mechanism.
Yeah.
Which leads us to a monumental realization, honestly.
What's that?
Ultimate suffering and ultimate paradise are not geographic destinations on a map.
Okay.
They are not distant shores you eventually arrive at after enough hard work. They are mental conditions.
Mental condition.
Yes, they exist entirely within you long before they ever crystallize into the reality around you.
I really want the listener to sit with the magnitude of that statement.
It's huge.
The suffering you are desperately trying to escape, or the paradise you are exhausting yourself trying to reach, are not places. They are states of mind that must be cultivated internally before they can ever be experienced externally.
Precisely.
So if we assume the posture of the diagnostician, right, and we dispassionately observe this vast map of our lineage, how do we dissect its specific topography? Like, how do we break down this abstract frequency into tangible components we can actually manipulate?
We systematically deconstruct it.
Okay.
The inherited pattern, this invisible trap, is not just an amorphous cloud of negative energy. It possesses a highly rigid structure.
Our architecture.
Yes. It can be logically deconstructed across 5 distinct spectrums of frequency. Let us call this the architecture of frequency.
We need to pull apart this architecture beam by beam, because this is where we actually get our hands on the mechanics of the trap.
Let's do it.
If we are looking at the foundational load-bearing walls of this inherited structure, where do we start? Let's trace the flow naturally.
The foundational material of the entire structure is belief.
Belief.
And the core mechanism we must expose here is the illusion of truth.
The illusion of truth.
We navigate our entire existence under the assumption that there are ultimate, unmovable truths in reality. We say things like, well, this is just how the world works, or this is just the reality of our socioeconomic class.
Oh, we hear it constantly. Money is inherently difficult to acquire.
Right.
People will inevitably betray you if you show vulnerability. Success requires agonizing, ruthless sacrifice. I mean, we treat these statements like the law of gravity.
We do, but I must assert this with absolute clinical clarity. There are no ultimate, unmovable truths in your experienced reality.
Wait, really?
None. There are only ideas that the subconscious mind has habitually accepted as true, which then dictate the parameters of your perception and experience.
Hold on. Stating there are no truths sounds like a dive into pure solipsism or, radical relativism.
It sounds like it, but it isn't.
Because if we say objective truth is entirely subordinate to subconscious belief, we run into an epistemological wall pretty fast.
Let's hear it.
Are we arguing that a belief in poverty physically alters external economic variables, or just our psychological perception of those variables? Because if it's just perception, that's simply cognitive bias.
It is vastly more profound than mere cognitive bias.
Okay, how so?
It is the synchronization of behavioral epigenetics with the observer effect.
Wow.
The brain is an efficiency engine. When an idea is repeated with enough emotional intensity across generations, it physically hardwires neural pathways.
Right.
The brain then utilizes its filtering mechanisms, like the reticular activating system, to literally blind you to any data, opportunity, or resource that contradicts that hardwired belief.
It edits reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The opportunity for wealth or connection might physically exist in the room with you, but your neurology will edit it out of your conscious awareness to maintain consistency with your belief.
So an inherited belief, like the idea that abundance requires ruthless, agonizing suffering, isn't an objective reading of the world at all.
No, it's not.
It is an invisible neurological cage. If a belief does not serve the expansion of your life, if it generates suffering rather than thriving, it is not a truth. It is simply a rogue line of code operating to control your behavior.
Yes.
But why are we so eager to lock ourselves in these cages?
We submit to the illusion of authority.
The illusion of authority.
The sheer compounding weight of family tradition, the repeated chorus of our ancestors' warnings, the societal norms we are bathed in since infancy.
Right. All that pressure.
This collective authority tricks our neurobiology into bowing down to ideas that actively harm us. We mistakenly equate longevity with validity.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to put it. Equating longevity with validity.
We assume that because an idea has survived the passage of eras within our family, it must be an inherent law of nature.
We confuse a long-standing bad habit with an immutable law of physics.
Perfectly said.
Now, if beliefs form the foundation, how do these beliefs mobilize into action? Because a belief sitting dormant doesn't build a life, right? It needs energy.
That brings us to the centralization of your energetic capital, which is focus and attention.
Focus and attention, pillar number 2.
Where belief is the blueprint, attention is the active construction crew.
Attention as a physical force. It reminds me of focusing a laser. Like, scattered light barely warms the skin, but if you take that exact same light and centralize the waves so they move in perfect coherence, it becomes a laser capable of slicing through solid steel.
A magnificent illustration of the mechanics at play.
Right?
And where does a lineage trapped in scarcity point that high-powered laser?
Everywhere they shouldn't.
They spend the lion's share of their cognitive and energetic capital focusing entirely on lack. They obsess endlessly over impending ruin.
Yeah.
Their minds become highly sophisticated threat detection algorithms, continuously scanning the horizon for systemic obstacles, plotting out exactly how and when the inevitable disaster will strike.
And the tragic irony is they believe they are acting responsibly.
They do.
They rationalize it as vigilance. They think, if I focus on all the ways this relationship could fail or all the ways this venture could collapse, I'll be prepared.
But mechanically.
Mechanically, by centralizing their attention on ruin, they are turning that laser onto dry leaves and actively igniting the very inferno they are trying to avoid.
Exactly, because focus demands materialization.
Demands materialization.
It directs your neurochemical resources and your behavioral microactions toward the object of your attention. Whatever you stare at grows in its density and influence over your life.
Right.
If your attention is entirely consumed by the barriers, your reality will consist entirely of barriers.
So the inherited beliefs dictate the parameters, and our focus directs the energy.
Yes.
When you combine a deep belief in scarcity with a laser focus on impending ruin, what does that do to the human being? It seems like it would force them to adopt a very specific posture in the world.
It does. It forces the adoption of identity. That is pillar 3.
Identity.
Identity is the invisible yet highly restrictive garment you wear. It is the total subconscious assumption of a specific character role within the generational play.
This maps perfectly onto the concept of archetypes.
Yes, archetypes.
Like if you look at a mythic hero in classical literature, that hero executes specific, unique behaviors that are entirely distinct from the background characters. The hero steps forward into the unknown, speaks with inherent authority, and assumes victory. Conversely, if a person is draped in an identity of poverty or the identity of the eternal martyr,
they play the part.
They involuntarily perform the deeply ingrained habits that match that specific archetype.
And we must recognize how incredibly subtle these epigenetic and behavioral performances can be.
How subtle?
Well, a person wearing the invisible garment of lack will perform micro-habits of lack daily. They might enter an environment of abundance and immediately shrink.
Oh, I've seen that.
Right. They might go to a restaurant and settle for a mere fragment of what they actually desire. They choose the absolute minimum, not out of preference, but because their internal identity violently forbids them from experiencing fullness or receiving pleasure.
They systematically water down their own experience of life to simulate the scarcity they feel they deserve.
Exactly.
They act from a place of perpetual inadequacy. Identity isn't just a label, is it? It's the physical posture you take when you walk into a room. It's the micro-apology in your voice when you ask for what you are worth. It is the subconscious sabotage of a healthy relationship, because being loved unconditionally conflicts with the identity of being unlovable.
Beautifully analyzed. Identity is the silent, ongoing performance of your accepted limitations.
Wow.
And when this identity is practiced long enough, it hardens into something even more unyielding, which brings us to pillar 4, emotional conviction.
Emotional conviction, that word carries a much heavier density than just belief.
It is the sheer, unadulterated power of knowing.
Knowing?
It transcends causal intellectual belief.
Yeah.
It is the unwavering, quiet, profoundly confident expectation of an outcome.
Okay.
In a trapped lineage, this manifests as the absolute confident expectation of failure, betrayal, or ruin.
I have witnessed this firsthand. It's terrifying to observe.
It really is.
It's when an individual isn't even frantic or anxious about things going wrong anymore. The anxiety has burned itself out, replaced by a dark, chilling peace.
Yes, a dark peace.
They calmly state, well, of course the venture collapsed. That's just my luck. Or, of course they abandoned me. Everyone leaves eventually. There is a morbid serenity in their expectation of pain.
That dark peace is lethal to human potential.
Lethal.
That invisible confidence acts as an intense, massive gravitational pull on physical circumstances.
That really? A gravitational pull?
Yes. When you possess the absolute knowing that failure is imminent, your frequency locks onto that outcome with the strength of titanium.
Wow.
The environmental variables have no choice but to organize themselves, dragging that exact circumstance to your doorstep simply to validate your profound conviction.
The sheer power of knowing acts like the guidance system on a missile.
Exactly like a missile.
Once the conviction is locked in, the destination is biologically and materially inevitable.
Inevitable.
But this brings up a crucial mechanism we have to clarify, because when people begin studying the architecture of thought, there is a very common paralyzing paranoia that sets in.
Ah, yes. The fear of the rogue thought.
Exactly. Pillar 5, the absolute terror that if I experience a solitary spark of anxiety, if I picture a car crash for a split second, or if a sudden intrusive fear of bankruptcy flashes through my mind, I am instantly going to collapse the wave function and manifest disaster.
People become terrified of their own minds.
They do. They become paralyzed.
We must systematically dispel this paranoia right now.
Please do.
It represents a fundamental misunderstanding of the physics of reality creation. Not all thoughts materialize.
Thank goodness for that.
Right. A solitary spark of a negative thought, a fleeting worry, or an intrusive image possesses absolutely no gravitational weight. The universe does not operate on an arbitrary punitive hair trigger.
So what actually gives a thought the density required to alter reality?
Momentum and emotional fuel. Let us look at emotionally charged thoughts. It is only the thoughts that are relentlessly supercharged with intense emotion, the visceral, gut-wrenching terror of starvation, or the burning, obsessive physiological resentment toward a former partner that builds enough electromagnetic momentum to crystallize into solid form.
So the emotion is the key.
Emotion is the energetic currency.
Yeah.
A thought without emotion is a vehicle without an engine. It goes nowhere.
Right.
It requires the biochemical and electromagnetic coherence of the heart and brain working in tandem to emit a signal strong enough to affect the sand on the plate.
Let's pull back and look at the entire blueprint we've just laid out.
Let's review it.
We have assumed the role of the diagnostician. We are reading the map of our lineage. We see the heavy ancient architecture holding up the generational struggle.
Yes.
It starts with the accepted beliefs acting as a cage. It moves into the intense focus on scarcity. It crystallizes into an identity of lack. It solidifies into the dark peace of emotional conviction. And it is constantly fueled by emotionally charged thoughts.
That is the complete anatomical blueprint of the ancestral trap. You now see exactly how the prison was constructed.
Which brings us to the crux of the entire inquiry.
The way out?
We see the trap. We understand the mechanisms. How do we dismantle this invisible prison? Like, how do we take these exact same raw materials and engineer a completely different reality?
We step across the threshold into the alchemy of transmutation.
The alchemy of transmutation.
This is the precise moment we evolve from being passive observers of our history to becoming the active architects of our future.
I love that.
And the foundation of this alchemy relies on a universally profound yet deeply counterintuitive realization.
Which is?
An ancestral burden and an ancestral gift are not two separate entities. They're composed of the exact same elemental energy.
Wait, we need to unpack that carefully.
Sure.
Are you suggesting that a generational curse, say a deeply ingrained pattern of financial ruin, is functionally the exact same energy as a generational legacy of immense abundance?
Yes.
How is that logically sound?
Because of the defining variable between them, their rate of vibration.
Ah, we are back to the cymatics, the frequency moving through the plate.
Precisely. Ancient philosophical traditions, long before modern physics, understood that ultimate reality requires a balanced equilibrium of opposites.
Right, the yin and yang.
This is the absolute law of polarity. You cannot conceptually or experientially perceive the dawn without the prerequisite darkness. They exist on the exact same continuous spectrum.
They're connected.
Consider temperature. Hot and cold are not different elements.
No, they're the same.
They're the exact same thing. Thermal energy simply vibrating at vastly different intensities.
So if I want to shift the reality of my life, the instinct is usually to wage a violent war against the old energy. We try to aggressively destroy the burden. We fight our poverty. We fight our loneliness.
And that is the fundamental error of the amateur.
Amateur.
Destruction is a futile, exhausting effort that only amplifies the resistance. You cannot destroy energy. You can only alter its state.
You can't destroy it.
You do not destroy the old, heavy energy. You transmute it. You intentionally slide it along the scale of polarity. You move it from its lowest density to its exact polar opposite.
I love this concept. Let's use an analogy to make this mechanical for the listener.
Go ahead.
Think of tuning a massive, complex, stringed instrument, like a concert grand piano.
Oh, perfect.
If a specific string is emitting a heavy, dissonant, depressing note, the solution isn't to take a pair of wire cutters and violently snap the string.
No, you'd ruin the piano.
Right. The physical string itself isn't malevolent, it isn't bad. It is simply lacking the appropriate tension.
A masterful analogy. You do not destroy the mechanism of sound. What is the precise action required?
You apply deliberate tension, you take your hand, you grasp the tuning peg, and you turn it.
Yes.
By increasing the tension, you raise the physical frequency of the string, and suddenly, that exact same piece of wire is producing a brilliant, harmonious, entirely different pitch.
Exactly. And in the mechanical process of reality creation, your concentration is the hand turning the tuning peg.
Concentration as the tuning peg. That is a brilliant synthesis.
Actionable implementation demands this level of precision.
So how do we implement it?
You must take the architecture we just mapped out, and you must relentlessly, systematically cultivate its precise opposite.
Give me an example.
If the ancestral focus was centralized entirely on the terror of fractured relationships and the expectation of betrayal, you do not fight the fear.
Right, you don't fight the string.
You turn the peg. You centralize your focus entirely on the harmonious mechanics of unbreakable, fiercely loyal bonds.
I have to actively scan the environment for evidence of loyalty. I have to biologically and neurologically tune the string of my focus until I feel the resonance of trust.
Yes, because the chain of causality is unbreakable.
It's mechanical.
Your concentration determines the vibration of your internal state. That vibration dictates the frequency you emit. And that frequency relentlessly demands a physical, material reality to match it. You identify the inherited belief that survival is a ruthless struggle, and you turn the peg, shifting your neurobiology to the belief that resources flow with absolute ease.
Turning the peg.
You locate the identity of the perpetual victim, and you actively assume the posture of the sovereign architect.
But let's introduce some friction here because this process is not instantaneous.
Oh, definitely not.
Turning a physical tuning peg takes a fraction of a second. Turning the energetic tuning peg of an entire human life involves a significant time delay.
Yes, there is a lag.
There is a lag between changing your internal frequency and seeing the sand on the plate fully reorganize into a new pattern.
And that time delay is the crucible wherein most people abandon the process.
They give up too soon.
The physical environment is denser than thought. It requires sustained frequency to reorganize.
Exactly. And the complication deepens because you are not conducting this experiment in a sterile vacuum.
No, you are not alone.
You are living among other human beings. So you turn the tuning peg, the internal string gets tighter, your vibration spikes, and the internal music of your life begins to change.
The new harmony.
But what happens when you are playing this brilliant new harmony and the rest of the orchestra, your parents, your siblings, your lifelong friends who are still deeply entrenched in the old vibration absolutely refuses to play along?
That is the ultimate test.
What happens when they actively despise the new song?
You have just touched upon the most dangerous, delicate, and misunderstood phase of this entire transmutation.
What do we call this phase?
We refer to this as the crucible of maintenance, and it involves confronting the absolute force of collective resistance.
Because escaping the gravity of your lineage inevitably triggers the people still living inside it.
Inevitably. As you begin to transcend the old frequency, a profound sociological and energetic phenomenon occurs.
Okay, break it down.
The collective state of consciousness of your lineage, the deeply shared beliefs, the communal fears, the agreed-upon identity of struggle, operates structurally as a self-preserving, invisible organism.
Like a massive distributed hive mind entity.
Yes. Because this collective frequency has been fed and sustained for the passage of eras, it has gathered immense momentum.
It's heavy.
It possesses structural integrity. And its primary imperative, much like any complex living system, is simply to maintain homeostasis. It wants to continue existing.
So the moment I start tuning my string to a higher frequency, I'm not just improving my own life. I am biologically and energetically threatening the survival of this invisible hive mind.
Exactly.
I am disrupting the ecosystem.
You are threatening its equilibrium. The universe mechanically favors energetic equilibrium.
Right.
When you attempt to shatter the historical pattern and spike your personal frequency, this invisible organism will utilize the surrounding physical environment to initiate a correction.
Correct.
It will attempt to pull you back into the fold. And the most highly effective, deeply integrated tools it has at its disposal are the people you love the most.
Oh man, this is the profound heartbreak of personal evolution, isn't it?
It truly is.
The family members, the lifelong friends, they suddenly, unwittingly become the agents of the old frequency.
They will unconsciously project an endless, suffocating tide of worry onto you.
Yes, the worry.
They will project their deep-seated scarcity, their fear of the unknown, or even sudden, inexplicable hostility.
I've heard this from so many people.
They will say things framed as love or realism, like, who do you think you are? Or you need to be realistic, or you are going to lose everything chasing these delusions.
And it is so incredibly disorienting because these are people who genuinely believe they are protecting you. The listener needs to hear this clearly. You are asserting that these loved ones are not being intentionally malevolent.
They are not malevolent in the slightest. They are entirely unconscious of the energetic mechanics they are acting out. They are simply reacting to the severe disruption of the hive mind's homeostasis.
They feel the disruption.
Your new, elevated vibration disturbs their internal equilibrium, and they are attempting to soothe their own acute discomfort by forcefully dragging you back into the familiar shared misery.
It is a profound, isolating loneliness.
Very isolating.
Let's upgrade an old metaphor to explain this to the listener. Imagine an entire ecosystem of deep-sea creatures, right, that have evolved for eras in absolute darkness and crushing pressure.
Down in the trench.
Yeah, their entire biology is adapted to the dark. If you suddenly introduce a massive, brilliant light source into that trench, you aren't saving them. You are blinding them.
The light is agony.
Yes, the light is agony to a system adapted to the dark. When you raise your frequency, your light burns the retinas of the people who have built their entire identity in the shadows of generational struggle.
That is precisely the dynamic. And your immediate human instinct, driven by love, guilt, and a deep biological yearning for tribal connection, will be to extinguish your own light.
You want to fit back in.
You will feel an overwhelming temptation to lower your vibration back down to the crushing pressure of the dark trench, simply so you can belong to the family again.
Let me just put my fire out so we can all be comfortable in the cold together.
Exactly. But if you succumb to that temptation, reality remains unmovable.
Unmovable.
You must engrave this foundational principle into your mind. Reality is only unmovable so long as you are unmovable.
As long as you are unmovable.
The ultimate test within the crucible of maintenance is your capacity to hold the frequency despite the screaming of the ecosystem. You must maintain the new pitch.
So the mandate is to simply stand there, emitting the new frequency entirely alone. I don't try to evangelize. I don't try to force them to open their eyes to the light.
You absolutely do not attempt to save them.
Why not?
You cannot mechanically force an energetic shift upon another sovereign consciousness. You only need to be the solitary, unyielding spark.
Just hold the line.
You maintain the frequency. You hold the structural integrity of the new reality. If they are genuinely ready to evolve, their systems will slowly adjust, and they will organically raise their frequency to meet yours.
And if they aren't?
And if they are not ready, they will naturally retreat back into the shadows. But you must never, under any circumstances, extinguish your torch to make the shadows comfortable.
That is the ultimate crucible. The willingness to be entirely misunderstood by the ghosts of your past in order to give birth to an unprecedented future.
Precisely. And traversing this crucible leads us to a much broader, majestic view of human capability.
It really opens up the aperture.
When we synthesize everything we have rigorously explored today, the unbroken invisible thread between mind and matter, the diagnostic mirror of lineage, the architecture of the 5 pillars, the mechanics of transmutation, and the endurance of the crucible. What we are fundamentally exposing is the true, staggering nature of what a human being actually is.
We are so much more than biological passengers.
We are not mere passengers floating helplessly on a vessel constructed by our ancestors. We are the absolute sovereign architects of reality's solid form.
We are the acoustic frequency demanding the sand take a new shape.
Exactly. By refusing to live by the default programming, by mastering the invisible thread connecting internal states to external matter, we possess a staggering magnitude of power.
We really do.
We hold the ability to literally rewrite the underlying source code of human existence for all who follow in our bloodline. We possess the authority to end the endless tide of struggle and initiate an entirely new era of profound mastery.
Let's bring this full circle. At the very beginning of our conversation, I painted that visceral picture for you, the listener.
The heavy inheritance.
Sitting at the table, normalizing the lack, feeling the heavy, inescapable gravity of the inheritance, the invisible heirloom of struggle pressing down on your chest.
And now the illusion of its permanence has been shattered.
Totally shattered.
You possess the mechanical knowledge to melt that heirloom down. You understand how to observe the historical map with clinical neutrality.
Like the diagnostician.
Identify the pillars holding up the architecture of scarcity, turn the tuning peg of your concentration to its exact polar opposite, and maintain the new frequency, even when the collective hive mind violently resists.
Which leaves me with a final, provocative thought for you to carry into your world.
Lay it out.
Let us project into the future. Let's say you execute this flawlessly. You successfully transmute this ancestral code.
All right?
You endure the loneliness of the crucible, you maintain the elevated frequency, and you establish a brilliant, abundant, joyous new baseline for your entire lineage. The generational struggle is completely eradicated.
The eternal gift is firmly secured.
Right. But what happens if you make the conscious, radical choice to never let that beautiful new reality become rigid?
Oh, I see where you're going.
What if you realize that even a magnificent diamond-clear block of ice is still ultimately frozen?
It's still ice.
What if the ultimate gift you pass down to the next generation isn't just a better fixed reality, but the absolute joyful fluidity to endlessly redesign it?
Wow.
What if the inheritance is the freedom to never be stuck in any script ever again?
That represents the apex of mastery, the ultimate freedom of infinite potential, forever unbound by form.
Something profound to consider as you step back into the mechanics of your life. Keep turning the tuning peg, keep holding the frequency, and we will catch you on the next thorough exploration.